Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. I can't believe how excited I am for that movie.
I know. I knew you would be.
I'm squealing with glee over World War Z.
Yes, you are the zombie man.
Oh, I hadn't even heard that this trailer was out. And so we were going to say
it just came out like a couple hours ago.
Okay, and so here's the problem. We're recording this a little bit early, and so this is going to make us sound like we're really behind the times. When people are actually listening, when you're actually listening to this, just know that we were on top of it when it came out. And
That's
then
right.
we recorded the show.
We really are up to snuff.
We're up to snuff. But we've got some travel. Actually, so when you hear this, I will be incognito. No, that's not the word. Incommunicado. Because my wife is taking me on a surprise trip for my birthday.
Yeah,
So
gonna be fun.
It's going to be very fun. So that's why we're doing this all crazy out of order thing, because I'm traveling.
That's right.
I'm going away. I'm going up
mystery adventure
up the creek.
You just need to
So-
make sure you have your luggage.
Always have your luggage.
Mm-hmm.
Clothes makes the man. So, okay, so World War Z. This is Brad Pitt in a family-oriented battle royale of incredible CG zombies. They look like ants. The zombies.
Yeah, it's going to be
Fantastic.
pretty crazy.
What do you know about this movie?
Mark Forster's directing it, and it's based on Max Brooks' book, of course. And this film has been plagued by just a lot of troubles, budgetarily and scheduling, and some people have been injured on set of stampedes. Just a lot of problems. But I, from the look of the trailer, it looks like it actually may be pretty good.
Of course, people were from the look of the trailer. Of course, people got hurt making this movie.
Yeah, right. No kidding.
It's like the whole movie is a stampede. It's a traffic jam and then a stampede toward the end,
yeah,
all the way to the end. Zombies all the way down, my friends.
yeah. Brad Pitt's in it. I'm not sure how you say your name, Mireille Enos, from The Killing, plays Brad Pitt's wife, and
those poor
The
children.
Killing. Have you seen that show? That's a great show. I love that show.
No, I have not seen that show. That was what's that, like an AMC thing?
Right.
Yeah.
And then Matthew Fox, David Morse. It's a good cast. It's going to be a global zombie disaster.
It's fantastic. I'm very, very much looking forward to this. When does it come out?
June, I believe it was June 21st, 2013. It was pushed back. It was supposed to open this Christmas, but with all these problems and everything, they had to push it back a full half year.
Have you read the book?
I have, and I love it.
Really? I have not. I'm getting it right now.
I can't believe you haven't read it.
I know this. I know this. Why? So, what the book came out in 2006? Max Brooks. What do you love about the book? Oral history of the zombie war.
Well, and honestly, I mean, from watching this trailer, it's really going to be nothing like the book, other than the fact that there's a zombie apocalypse. But the book, the premise is, you've got a reporter writing this book after the zombie pandemic, basically, and going around the world interviewing people about their experience. And so you get this really fascinating global perspective from all walks of life, all around the world, and how people dealt with the zombie apocalypse and survived it. And it's a fascinating book, the way that it's told. This movie looks completely like it's happening during the zombie apocalypse, and the reporter's not there. I'm not quite sure what Brad Pitt's role is, but he seems to be tied into the government somehow. So maybe his character was a character in the book. I can't recall, but it looks vastly different in that aspect. Regardless, it still looks like it's going to be a globe-trotting zombie journey.
I'm giddy with anticipation.
Yeah, you should
Truly.
be. It'll be fun.
I wanted to check in with you about something we exchanged some words on throughout the week, which is this Star Wars Despecialized edition. Have you had a chance to look at this?
I haven't. I started. I've had plenty of other computer things I've been dealing with this past week, so I have not had a chance to finish downloading it or to look at it.
Okay. Well, the Star Wars, if you haven't heard of Star Wars, the Despecialized edition,
just do a friendly web search for Star Wars Despecialized and check it out. You're looking for a URL. There's a long forum URL, but the top-level domain there is originaltrilogy.com, and you're looking for Harmy's Star Wars Despecialized Edition, and there's Harmy offers a couple of download links, a torrent link, so you can get this. What this, the Despecialized Edition is essentially the original Star Wars Episode 4, but with all of the updated color correction. And it's essentially a remastering of the original 1977 theatrical version of Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. From the website, this is a reconstruction of the 77 theatrical version. The original shots were painstakingly restored using various sources, and the film received an extensive shot-by-shot color correction based on a fade-free 1977 IB Technicolor print. The remastered version represents a significant improvement in picture quality over the earlier version. Audio options include all three 77 mixes. The original 70mm 6-track was recreated by Harry Henn, the original stereo mix captured from Laserdisc, and the original mono mix restored from Belbicus. Also included are isolated score tracks, a commentary track from the 1993 Laserdisc release, and a British commentary for the visually impaired. The video sources used a number of video sources and custom mats, 35mm and 70mm film cell scans. Really went to some length to do a frame-by-frame remastering of this movie. Total fan preservation. And I downloaded it, and I have to say, it is beautiful. And it is a wonderful way to remember just how great this movie was the first time you saw it.
Right.
It really, it's great. And so I just, this is one of those things that I absolutely love that there are people out there doing. And I feel like I wish, I need to read through this more clearly, because I wish there was a way to better support these kind of fan preservations.
The thing that I brought up was, I wonder if, as great as it is that they did that, I wonder how fruitless it all is now that Disney owns the Lucas film library, essentially. Because Disney, I don't think, holds back like George did,
right,
as far as releasing things. And so I wouldn't be surprised if down the road Disney releases the original cuts just to make more money.
Yes. No, I think you're exactly right. And this is what we talked about, that in fact, that may be one of the best things that comes out of the acquisition of Lucasfilm by Disney, that we may get a remaster of the 77 original version, which I think, would likely satisfy, cinephiles and geeks everywhere.
Absolutely.
To actually see this one with that kind of treatment. I should add that The Empire Strikes Back has been available for a while, it looks like. The Empire Strikes Back Despecialized Edition you can also get from Harmy, and I guess he started with that one because everybody knows Empire's the favorite.
And was there that much changed in Empire? Star Wars or Episode 4 and Jedi, as I recall, were the ones that had the biggest changes.
Yeah, let's see. This is a cut which is very close to the theatrical version of The Empire Strikes Back, except for some of the cleaned up visual effects. A list of changes with picture comparisons and explanations of how the shots were despecialized can be found here. It also is available as a PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, how funny.
If you don't have PowerPoint, you can download the viewer, yada yada yada. So, no, it looks like this was just I'm not sure. I don't. I don't remember a whole lot of muddling with this movie. Maybe that's why it was such a good start.
Yeah, right. Didn't have as much to change.
He went back to the original logos, for example. He went back to the Lucasfilm Limited logo in green, just straight up type, rather than the fancy Lucasfilm logo that was added in 2004.
Right.
Went back to the original blue color for the long time ago Galaxy Far Away.
Gosh, I don't even remember it being blue. That's so funny.
There was a lot of crazy stuff added in the Snow Monster special edition. The abominable snowman scene.
The Wampa.
Yeah, eating the arm.
Right.
So there's a lot of stuff there that was re-specialized or despecialized. So I'm looking at the he's got it in the all of these photos. You can look at the before and after, and true enough, he did a lot of work. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. So that's
cool.
That's what I've got on Star Wars Despecialized. Just go ahead and Google that. Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back Despecialized are available for download, courtesy of the diligent, fantastic fan in Harmy on the originaltrilogy.com.
Gotta love those Star Wars fans.
Gotta love those Star Wars fans. True enough. All right. We're in smack dab in the middle of our Great Car Chases series.
It is, tonight is Ronin, 1998's John Frankenheimer movie.
Yes, indeed. Ronin is a fantastic film. It was there's so much going on in Ronin. It is a crime thriller written by J.D. Zeik and David Mamet. Weirdly uncredited film. From
Not
David
uncredited.
Mamet. Well, it's weirdly credited. That's why I say weirdly, because there's story, there's backstory. It's credited as not David Mamet.
Right, he's credited as Richard Weiss.
Right. Who is this Richard Weiss? One asks.
That's right. Who is that?
Why
it's David Mamet.
It's David Mamet. Now the reason we include this Ronin in our great car chases is because it's got not one but several great. Pretty much every time anybody gets in a car, there is a car chase in this movie that is fantastic. Short car chases, little trips around the block. They end up being really exciting. And so this film just does great things with cars throughout Nice and Paris, and
lots of cars,
lots of drivers, and it ends in a stampede. So who knew? Film stars Robert De Niro, Jean Reno, Natasha McClone, Stellan Skarsgård, Sean Bean, Jonathan Pryce, all as much as really younger-looking people, with the exception of Robert De Niro. But no, it's really great, in particular, to see Sean Bean, who looks like a kid, and Stellan Skarsgård, who looks like a sort of a porcelain cast of himself. And they ended up doing excellent work in this film. So the story, what's great about this, the story of Ronin, is that it is a story. It is a quintessential story of the MacGuffin.
It really is, and I had forgotten just how much the MacGuffin really plays into this film.
Yes,
but it is hugely. It's all about the MacGuffin. It's an amazing example of that.
It is an amazing example of that. It is what we would say a textbook example of the MacGuffin. The entire film ends up being the chase for the case. These
like an aluminum ice skate.
Right,
case.
Ice skate case. These hired guns are brought together to presumably do this job, to acquire this case for the Irish, for the IRA, for Sinn Féin. And so the story is about these guys coming together. There is a double cross. There is a double cross of the double cross. And in the end, it is a buddy movie between Robert De Niro and Jean Reno. So it's sort of, the movie sort of evolves over the course of 3-4 acts. And by the end of the movie, it's Lethal Weapon in France. And the bottom line is, we never find out what's in the case. The whole time, the question is quite obviously and literally asked, what is in the case? And it is ignored or misdirected every single time that question is asked. And what happens?
Then he even brings it, and when they say, well, what was in the case? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Or I forgot, right?
Yeah, I forgot. Rule number 2. And so this is a movie about the things that go on around this case, and the gamble is the Frankenheimer gamble, the Mamet and Zeich gamble, is that the things that happen in the orbit of the case are more interesting than the case themselves. And I think, to me, that I think that pays off in this film
tremendously. It makes for a great example of a film that really ends with a surprise, because with that twist at the end, when you realize what the film is all about, it doesn't matter. Then you realize it doesn't matter what's in the case, and it's such a nice twist, and it really plays into that so well, and it makes for a much more interesting ending, I think.
I think it does too. I'm usually a fan of the Hollywood ending, and so one would think that I would be frustrated by this, and yet I am not. I end up being very satisfied by this film and by the story that happens around this case, and in particular by the by the stunt work that is done in this movie that makes it an action film. I think that carries a different tone than many action films of this era.
Well, and that's a good point. John Frankenheimer actually talked about that, and he said it's because a lot of people noticed when the film came out how it wasn't just like this high octane race from beginning to end. It was actually a film that had quiet moments, used silence well, and knew how to build tension. And John Frankenheimer talks about that and saying how Hitchcock would even say the way that you build tension is by having the quiet moments before that, and that way when something happens, it makes it that much more exciting. And it does feel like a lot of filmmakers these days have kind of forgotten that, particularly when they're making like high octane sorts of films. Like if you look at the Fast and the Furious films, for example, it's really just like nonstop barrage of stuff being thrown at you from beginning to end. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just a totally different type of hyper filmmaking, and it's it works for what it's doing. But when you're really trying to make something that lasts, I think and that has a better pacing and a feel that actually you can emotionally connect with better, having those beats where it slows down for a minute, things get quiet, and it builds, and you create that tension. It ties you in emotionally rather than the commercial style where it's just thrown at you and you're expected to absorb it.
Yes, and that specifically takes us to a quick review of the brilliant pacing from the car chase in Bullet, where you actually have the first third of the car chase done as we're watching them obey the law.
Right.
Which and that slowdown is almost a slow motion in comparison to the actual chase that comes after it. The out of control nature of the French Connection that we discussed last week, where you have the car chasing the train, and there's that sort of disconnect from time when one of the players is out of control of the chase. And in this movie, I think we see both of those elements at play, where you have this fantastic pacing, this unbelievable compression not in terms of a train or any other sort of moving vehicle apart from the other cars, but I think the choice to set this and run these car chases in Nice and Paris in incredibly compressed settings. I think the setting, in fact, has taken on sort of a character role in itself, and it is used to great effect in this movie, in particular.
It really is, and you can see how. This came out in '98. You can see how it's influenced other films since then, particularly the tunnel chase that happens toward the end of the second car chase in this film, and how that ended up influencing the Bourne films, which we've already talked about.
Absolutely. Now, there's another thing about this movie in particular that I think we need to at least talk about, which is the role of the actor as the driver. And I think this is where Ronin and De Niro in particular in Frankenheimer's sort of vision, I think really sets apart the role of the action driver.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I love so much about this movie and watching De Niro drive is that he has this constant look of anxiety on his face. Like with every turn he executes and every car he sideswipes, he is really in his head saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I just did I'm sorry about that. Oh, this is terrible. I'm so sorry." You actually feel that sort of anxiety and the kind of panic in his role, even though he never says a word.
Right.
During particularly the big chase that where he's behind the wheel, and I think that is I had kind of disconnected from that in French Connection and Bullet, and in this movie I think he is a really interesting character to watch drive.
Yeah, he is. He. Well, I think what comes of that is it really looks like they're really paying attention. They're 110% in the moment when he's grabbing the handbrake and pulling that to help him get around that turn and all of that, and you see him really doing all that stuff. It just, you see him so much in the moment, and those expressions on his face. You're right there with him. It adds that much more energy to the film, and it makes for a very exciting car chase.
Absolutely, it does. Absolutely, it does. It is a wonderful trip, and we should add the opening car chase at night after the initial exchange they're supposed to make. The team is buying some weapons, and and so they're making the exchange, and Sean Bean, goes a little bit crazy, and things happen, and shots are fired, and the chase begins, and it's an Audi S8 that is being driven in this first chase, and this movie made Audi cool again. Yeah, and go ahead.
I was gonna say it did, and actually, it did a lot for a lot of cars, but yeah, Audi and even a Peugeot. I was going to say, the Peugeot that he's driving at one point.
Yes,
I don't know if he made the Peugeot cool, but it was cool seeing him driving a Peugeot.
Well, it really was, and let's see, the cars used in this throughout the film. Let's see, there's the Audi S8, Peugeot 406, Peugeot 605, Citroën XM, BMW M5, Mercedes 450 SEL, and a Mercedes-Benz W116 variant with a high-powered engine. And as far as I have read, I don't know how they end up doing this. I'm assuming you caught up on the Frankenheimer DVD commentary where he discusses the cars being towed through the streets of France by a Mercedes.
I didn't, because they didn't put any extras on the Blu-ray.
I wanted to talk to you about that toward the end here, because that's I know that's a bit controversial. The DVD had all of these wonderful, wonderful making of and commentary tracks, and there he says that the cars were actually towed through the streets at high speed, not simulated by a Mercedes-Benz 500e. Not bad, Mercedes.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. It's really a fantastic way to get the shots looking great when you're going. It's being towed, I guess, is one thing, but you're still able to get some great shots doing that.
Absolutely. The car was driven by Skip Sudduth. The Audi was driven by Skip Sudduth, who's, he's one of those interesting kind of vanilla actors who ends up everywhere. Once you recognize him, he's kind of in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he plays Larry in this, and he was in, he's in Money Train. He's in The Good Wife. Actually, he's in The Good Wife right now. Mm-hmm. And Curb Your Enthusiasm. He appeared in that as Mr. Softy Man.
Mr. Softy Man, Third Watch. And he's also directed a number of episodes of ER, Criminal Minds. So he's been around, and I think does a great job as the original the hired wheelman in this movie, and ends up leading a great chase through through the streets in Ronin. So, this movie really stands out for its for the what they do with cars, and not just these initial one-on-one chases, but the daytime chase at the end, where they have the vast number of of stunt cars that are just destroyed.
Yeah, and I mean the person supervising the drivers, what is his name? Is Lagniez, I think, Jean-Claude Lagniez, who kind of the stunt coordinator. He devised all these car chases, and Frankenheimer really wanted to raise the bar and do something really great with car chases, because he knew there was a lot of digital technology already out there, and people could use that digital technology to enhance it and make it so you could do crazier things in car chases. And he really wanted to go back to that real style that he started, like back when he did Grand Prix back in the 60s. And so Lagniez, who was an actual race car driver, he had about 150 different stunt drivers out there to do all these different sequences. They were racing around at speeds up to 120 miles per hour. And just the cars that they wrecked, they had 80 cars that they used intentionally to wreck during the course of the production.
Yeah, that's you can. What I like so much about the destruction of these cars is just how sort of tangible it is. I think we should make note of the sound design in this movie. It was a thing that I had not, I hadn't quite made a connection until my wife walks in as I'm watching it. She says, "Oh, I totally remember this." You can really feel the crunching.
Yeah.
Because of the sound, and I think that's a really good point. It sounds just like if you have witnessed a car accident, if you have seen two cars crunching into each other at even a reasonably high speed. They executed that level of sort of subdued, horrifying grinding every time cars made contact in this movie. It was really artfully done and restrained.
And not just the crunching of the cars, but even just the racing around of the cars. They were very specific in their audio recording of each of these cars. They took them all out on racetracks. They got all the sounds of the cars revving and driving and braking, and every car had its own sound, so that any time in the course of the production they needed to put the car's sounds in, they always had the right car's sound with the car itself. Just to make sure, because people know cars. If you're a car man, you're going to know the sound an Audi is going to make versus a Peugeot or a BMW.
Right. I think that's a fantastic attention to detail. You don't. I didn't make that connection, but I don't. I don't drive an Audi today.
Yeah, I don't know the difference between car engines, but there are people who do.
So a lot of the car movement in these chases were done with those that weren't being towed by this beefy Mercedes were done with right-hand drive, and so it looked particularly during the De Niro and Natasha McClone.
Is it McClone? I thought it was McElhone.
I don't know.
Something. I don't know.
I'm trying to sound it like Deirdre. To make it look like they were driving right-hand drive. Cars were used, and so the stunt driver was actually driving on the right, unless they were doing the rear view tow camera.
Right.
And boy, I totally buy it.
The car chases in this film, honestly, it's hard to look away anytime one of the car chases starts. They're just so solid from beginning to end. Frankenheimer really took his time making sure that everything worked. He was so careful about the specifics of his car chases. He didn't have a second crew come in to do that. He didn't have any second unit director. He did all of it himself. So after they shot the film, all the principal photography, he went out and essentially was the second unit director. He directed all of it himself because he wanted to make sure that it matched the style that he'd already set for the rest of the film, and he wanted to make sure that he got everything looking exactly as he wanted. I mean, it's a true sign of a real master who knew his craft and knew exactly what he wanted to get.
Truly, I think this line kind of sets it up. Skip Sudduth had actually requested to do all of his own stunt driving during this car chase, and Frankenheimer says, "Okay, I don't want to see any brake lights."
Nice.
Yeah, nice. Well, it's a beautiful part. There's a series of beautiful sequences in this film that are done with cars, and that's what makes this movie, I think, for me. I said last week, this is a movie I could put on and just let it run, because there's not a lot of talking in this movie. Actually, you mentioned this sort of use of silence. It's one of those movies that is just you kind of let it wash over you, and it's you don't get distracted by a lot of talky talk.
Yeah. And the story itself, it's not too complex, but it's a really interesting story, and I love the tie-in of the samurai warriors to this group of people that are essentially kind of Cold War warriors who now no longer have sides to fight for or anything. Now they're all of a sudden just mercenaries out there, basically taking money from the highest bidder and going and just doing these jobs like retrieving a case. That is, I'm glad you brought that up. So Ronin is the masterless samurai, or according to Wikipedia, it's also someone who's graduated from high school but hasn't started college yet in Japan. so there's that. That's awesome. The thing that I'm interested in is, we talked about the movie is the search for the case, and at the end of the movie we realize that as we get to the end, particularly in the reveal, the De Niro reveal to Natasha, right, to Deirdre, that really what we've been doing this whole time is learning about each of these characters. And as we are distracted by the case on our first watch, what we get when we watch it the second and third time is we realize that there's a lot more complexity in the backstory of these hired guns than that is just sort of leaked out by their behavior. What we learn from Sean Bean's character, that he's a fraud, and how we discover that he's a fraud through his behavior and through his interactions with De Niro. What we learn from Jean Reno's character and his and his behavior with those, particularly in the ice skating scene at the end, and how he relates to the other to the other security officials, and particularly what we learn about De Niro. And this is one of those sort of things that I have not resolved for myself, and I wonder what your take on it is. For everybody else, and I think at the end of the film when we see Jean Reno walking up the stairs, and his voiceover comes back on, right, when we've been hearing, De Niro at the beginning, what I am left to sort of believe is that, the Ronin really is in the Frenchman's, character. He's the hired gun. Yeah. He is the masterless samurai. But are we to believe that De Niro was the hired gun at one point, or was he always an agent on assignment? I think he was always an agent, but I mean, I think the Ronin is really all of these people. Except for De Niro, depending on your take on the movie. Except for De Niro, and I guess you would say probably except for Deirdre and Seamus, since they're specifically working. They're part of the IRA, right? Right. So it's really just all these other people that they bring on board to help them retrieve this case. And right. So the interesting thing about De Niro is he's not really kind of this Ronin character. He's essentially a spy posing as a Ronin so that he can get in with the group, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that's the take. And so what I have heard is that there is a rather vocal portion of the fan base of this movie that thinks that he was actually a Ronin all along, and was sort of rehired. At the end, like he was rehired? Yeah.
as a result of his work.
I don't know. I guess I just have never thought that because he so specifically states, I never left.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That was my take. But, you start reading what other people, and then the peer pressure kicks in.
Yeah. That's right.
Okay.
The
So
interwebs
So
peer
what he
pressure.
says is, I never left. I'm here for your boss. I'm not even here for the case. And that, to me, relieves some of the pressure for us as the audience to want to know what's in the case. That suddenly, in that beat, we now have a different objective as an audience, a different target.
Well, and that's the twist, right? That's
Right.
the exciting twist that comes at the end of the film when all of a sudden the big reveal happens and you're like, ooh.
Absolutely.
So I mean it works really well. It's a great twist. And I'm curious how much of this was the original writer, J.D. Zeke, or how much of it was the Richard Weiss, aka David Mamet. According to J.D. Zeke, most of it was his, and he got the shared screenplay credit, but in the story credit. But Mamet was unhappy with the fact that he had to share the screenplay credit with Zeke because he felt he did enough changes to it that should have been his. And Frankenheimer said we didn't even use Zeke's script; it was all Mamet. So it's interesting. It's interesting to always hear these battles about writing credits and try to figure out who really did what.
I don't know. I don't hear a lot of J.D. Zeke in this movie. I don't. I mean, part of that is because I've seen a lot of Witchblade. I admit it. I'm a fan of the Yancey Butler. I'm very much a fan of Yancey Butler, and so he was a writer on that. But the other one is that David Mamet is such an iconic sort of writer of dialogue, and I feel like I went back and I took off the shelf my scripts for for Homicide and for the Duck Variations and Sexual Perversity in Chicago, and as I was flipping through those this evening, kind of getting ready to talk about this film, I just it just comes back in Technicolor, just the voice of of David Mamet, and that's the voice I hear in this film. And that makes it that much more sort of unfortunate, because to me this is very much a David Mamet film, and apparently to Frankenheimer as well.
Yeah, it's and that's very true. It really did feel Mamet-ish, and actually I had forgotten, because when I watched it, I just read the credits and I was like, okay, J.D. Zeke and Richard Weiss, and that was that. And it wasn't until I was looking again that I was reminded, oh yeah, David Mamet did write some of this, and it did have that feel to it. When I looked back on it, I'm like, yeah, it really did kind of have a Mamet feel. Not so much so that I felt like he was writing in every like he would do like in Glengarry Glen Ross or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it still has that beat and that pacing that he writes with.
That's what I hear. And the use of silence, frankly. The way he writes silence is particularly notable in this film. So that was the interesting thing. Has he written anything else under this pseudonym? Is this I don't know anything else about Richard Weiss.
Not that I have ever heard. I've never heard that he had written anything under that pseudonym before. This
Richard Weiss is the only thing that shows up.
Yeah.
And it brings up when you search in on IMDb, it brings up David Mamet. So
yeah.
It looks like he has not, at least in his filmography, it looks like he has not written anything else under that name.
Speaking of,
yes,
completely off topic, but did you see that they're remaking About Last Night?
No.
It's coming out next year. Steve Pink is directing it. based on the play.
Oh dear, yes. Okay. Fantastic.
Wow.
That was one of my I was a pretty big fan of this movie, just because I was a huge fan of the play. And I hope they actually do it greater justice.
I've never seen it.
Paula
The
Patton
movie
and
or the
Michael
play.
Ealy. You've never seen it?
I know.
Oh man.
Oh, I heard the movie wasn't very good, so I never bothered with it.
No. It was fine. The movie was fine. The play is better. So read the play.
Yeah.
But gosh, this is fascinating.
So-
What Michael Ealy is in it, who was in the stunningly good. He's been in a lot of stuff since then, but the stunningly good Sleeper Cell in 2005, and is absolutely worth picking up. It was a Showtime. It ran for 2 seasons. It was a Showtime series that is fantastic. Tales of Terrorism, and he plays an undercover agent in a Muslim terror cell.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was great. Anyway, that's good news. I'd be interested in seeing that again. It bums me out. File that away, and just sort of the general bum that comes with we've run out of things to write movies
Right,
about.
when they're remaking
When
about
they're remaking
last night.
about last night, we know we're how I thought we'd already hit the bottom of the barrel. Apparently, we have
Apparently not.
not. So
Well, yeah. They haven't remade Little Nicky yet, so at least we have that.
but Machete Kills is coming up, so
That's right.
there you go. So what else do we have to say about this movie? It was not terribly well received in the box. Well, I should say, I should qualify that. It didn't do very well.
No,
It seems to have been remembered
really
very
surprises me
well.
for a big, car chase thriller. I'm really surprised it fared how it did at the box office.
Because it has, check me on this. It feels like it has been remembered very fondly.
It has. Well, to be honest though, when I saw it the first time in the theater with you, actually,
Mhm.
I was a little
That's
like,
weird,
okay,
right?
well, that was kind of fun. It didn't knock my socks off or anything. But I have found over the years, much like you, that it's a film that's so easy to return to. It's so easy to watch. It's enjoyable. It's well paced. The car chases are exhilarating. Everything about it is just wonderful, and I like it more and more every time I see it. I think it might be just one of those slow burn sort of films.
I think it is. It's certainly what it feels like. This is a movie where a bunch of people came together to deliver an extremely complex dance of people and machines in the form of a thriller and a solid story, and I think it executed extremely well. It feels like it managed through action and silence to deliver a story of sort of a complex character, complex character driven. I'm losing the word. What is the word I'm looking for? I'll edit that.
Character-driven
I'll fix it in
action
post.
thriller.
Yeah, it's a character-driven action thriller. We'll fix it in post. But it is. I think it's part of the criticism is that it's a movie that's not really about anything, and I disagree with that.
Yeah.
I think it is very much a movie about about what happens when opposing forces, these sort of opposing energies come into conflict with one another in sort of a state of surprise. That these guys didn't even know they were opposing forces until halfway through the film, and then they suddenly realized that this is very much a film about finding out how to do what's right while you are pretending to be so wrong.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love the way it plays out.
There's
one thing
the characters are so fascinating. I think that's what makes it, aside from the story, these characters are so fun to watch. I mean, De Niro, the way that he plays the scenes where he's just so intent on always just making sure he has the right information. And even when people say, oh, what are you worried about saving your own skin? Yeah, it covers my body. Just lines like that. It's just like, yeah, I mean, he wants to know the information because he just wants to pull everything off the right way.
Yeah, I think that's an important. There are two pieces of where that comes into play. First of all, is you're right when he's getting the lowdown and he just drives and drives and drives and drives and drives to every single detail to the point where he exhausts even the other professionals in the room.
Right.
We see Sean Bean it pushes him over the edge. When you see Jean Reno, and his, the way he plays his reaction to De Niro is impressed. But everybody, is sort of rallies around his orbit and that energy of trying to find the detail. The other character interaction that I thought was that was stunning to me was in the holdup between Stellan Skarsgård and the thug at the end, the Russian.
Mm-hmm.
When he holds up the phone and says, we're going to do this deal. Essentially, the handoff is, we're going to do this deal. I'm going to take my money. You're going to take this thing, the case, and I'm going to leave. And the way I know I'm going to get out of here is because I have a hired gun in the audience who has that hired gun trained on your very famous Russian skater played by
his Russian skater girlfriend,
played by Katarina Witt. Now, what I think is so great here, the setup is that if he doesn't make the call within 45 seconds, the hired gun's going to pull the trigger and kill the girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And they let it play out. And eventually he shoots, the Russian shoots Skarsgård and lets his girlfriend die.
Yeah. And it's so tense watching that because you see Skarsgård, the way that he plays that is just genius because you see him start realizing that he's not going to get out of here, and you can see those beads of sweat forming on his forehead, and you can see his second guessing his decision to make this kind of the way is gonna go because it starts feeling like it's not going to happen, and it makes for a beautifully tense scene.
Absolutely does. I think it just is another one of those scenes that is a standout in this movie. Something that other movies do differently. That they don't take that risk, and I think this movie, it's one of those little elements, those little risks that they take in service of watching these characters make these transitions that I think that is beautifully done.
Yeah, really is.
Yeah.
What do you think of the casting of Jonathan Pryce in this? Well, I want to throw a thought out your way, but I just want your thoughts on that first.
I was not. He's the one I haven't historically been moved by, and I don't know if it's. I usually love Jonathan Pryce. I love Jonathan Pryce in a lot of what he does, and in this one, I have such a hard time with the accent. And hearing it come out of his face, that I find myself really confused by that choice.
That's exactly my feeling with it. I mean, I do love him. I mean, he's in Brazil, which is my favorite film of all time. And he's been in many other great films, just a fantastic actor. However, they do such a great job of casting people who use their real accents.
Yes.
Throughout the film. I mean, Jean Reno has that wonderful kind of French accent when he speaks his English. Natasha McElhone has that great Irish brogue. Stellan Skarsgård, I guess he's kind of playing more of a German, but he
can pull it off.
What is he? He's Swedish, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And Sean Bean, they all have those great kind of European accents already. And then Jonathan Pryce is like, oh, and then they bring in the American to play the big Irish guy. That for me just never seemed like the right choice.
I had that problem with it. It's like he just wasn't he just wasn't built to make those sounds. You know, like it just didn't take. And you know, I think to your point, there are. Gosh, I don't know. It's hard to say, you know, who they could have chosen to play that any better. You know, now we're 14 years later, and I'm sort of wondering, gosh, you know, what would the choices have been? I mean, we're talking about what, Cole Meany, Gabriel Byrne,
right? Yeah, I mean, you got to
know,
look back to the 1998 big Irish actors, and yeah, you're right. I mean, the Gabriel Byrne type of people.
Well, I mean,
probably
hell, Liam
be
Neeson,
looking at
Neeson, Brendan Gleeson. I mean, these are guys who have been working for a long time and are already Irish,
right?
That I think they really could have, you know, they could have played that quite well.
Yeah,
so it's unfortunate, but. So he's in my view, he's absolutely the weak link in this film, and it's just a weird miscast.
Yeah, I agree.
So anyway, the movie, what do you have for the budget? Because it made its money back in the box office, but not by much.
I don't, not by much. It actually, according to this, it doesn't look like it did. I see that the production budget, which is what it cost to make the film, was $55 million. I see that the total budget for the film was $80 million. All the prints and advertising, everything else, bumped it up a nice chunk there. And I see the total domestic gross was about 41.6 million, international about 29 million. So worldwide is only about $70.6 million that it made on a total budget of 80 million. So it's a box office loser.
That is too bad.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen this movie, and it sounds like by the box office you probably haven't, head over to rashpixel.tv this week, and you can stream it right there from the website. You can click on that little link. It costs you a couple bucks. You can watch it on Amazon right now, or you can pick up the DVD, of course. And we would love you to do that at rashpixel.tv and support the show. It sends us a couple of pennies to help support our hosting and time. So absolutely check this movie out. What else do you have? You've got what's your one more thing?
The random thing that I just want to throw out there for this one, which I think is the strangest choice, and I'm not sure why John Frankenheimer would have made this decision, but Ron Jeremy, the porn star, was actually in the film. He had a small role playing a fishmonger in Paris whose stall gets demolished during the chase. But when they did some test screenings of this, and all the audiences started cracking up because they recognized him. And so the studio very smartly cut it out.
You know what I love about that? Here we have a movie with Robert De Niro and Stellan Skarsgård and Sean Bean and Jean Reno, and it was Ron Jeremy that was too famous for this movie. That's epic.
Oh man, yeah, that's just crazy.
That is fantastic. Well, this is a great film. Please go check it out. Rashpixel.tv. And, let us know what you think. Head over to Facebook and drop us a line. Or right on the site, drop us a line and let us know what you think of this movie. It is the unsung hero of great car chases.
Definitely. And everybody should see it at least once because it's fun. It's just a breeze to watch. And it's much more interesting than a lot of the more recent car chase movies out there.
Absolutely. I think that's all we have. So, Andy, where can people find you?
They can head on over to Twitter, and they can find me at Soda Creek Film or Facebook at Soda Creek Film. And, of course, on the Movies We Like Facebook page.
Excellent. And same thing with me, at Pete Wright on the Twitter, or find me on Facebook. You can plug me in on the Facebook page or at rashpixel.tv. We're right there. Look forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much for joining us for Ronin, and we'll catch up. Next week, we're going to hit one that I had never seen. But I'm so glad you recommended that we put this on the list of great car chases.
That's right.
We're going to be
made you do it.
We're going to be doing Drive with Ryan Gosling. Man,
that's right.
Very excited to talk about this movie. Until next week, everybody, we're out of here.
Have a good one.
We wanted to take a moment to thank you for your continued support over the years. It's hard to believe that we've been having weekly, in-depth discussions about movies since 2011.
That's right, 12 years and counting. Producing this show is a labor of love for us, but it does require a lot of time and effort each week.
If you enjoy our podcast and would love to help keep it going, there are some easy ways you can show your support. One is by using our Originals page to shop for the original source material that movies we've discussed were based on.
That's right. In Season 1 alone, we covered 13 films adapted from books or plays, from Charlie Kaufman's adaptation to David Fincher adaptations like Fight Club.
In Season 2, we covered even more, like Powell and Pressburger's The Red Shoes and The African Queen from our series about legendary cinematographer Jack Cardiff.
We can't forget about the 4 Jason Bourne movies we talked about. Love those movies. Well, the original trilogy, at least.
For our Richard D. Zanuck series, we did Jaws, Rush, Big Fish, and more. And for our horror series, we talked about John Carpenter's The Thing, which was adapted from Who Goes There?
We did our first great car chase series with movies like Bullet, The French Connection, and Drive. And for the holidays, we did Preston Sturgis's Christmas in July.
We had a great John Huston series with adaptations like The Maltese Falcon and The Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
And for our baseball series, Moneyball with Brad Pitt. Have I told you lately how much I love that movie?
Yeah, I think you have. Plus our Magician series and Heist film series had adaptations as well.
Tons of page-to-screen gems. Listeners can find the details and links to the original material at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book, play, or movie you buy through our links helps support the show, and it's no extra cost to you.
So dive in and get your next read today. thenextreel.com/originals has all the films adapted from other sources that not only we have covered, but all of the shows on the Next Reel family of podcasts. Check it out and get reading.
Support the show and build your reading list. It's a win-win. Head to thenextreel.com/originals.